So what are the downstream effects? Are we also seeing less birds and predators, or are we seeing crop failures because we don't have pollinators? What are the downstream effects that are starting to be measured or seen?
Well, so there certainly seems to be a decline of insect-eating birds that seem to be declining at a faster rate than the average for birds. So particularly aerial feeders, things like swallows and swifts, and also birds like spotted flycatcher, which, as the name suggests, likes to eat flying insects, flies, and so on. Cuckoos as well, which are specialist caterpillar feeders, all showing really big declines. And the spotted flycatcher in the UK is down 97% since the 1970s. So this is a really massive population collapse. Sometimes it's confused by the fact that there also seems to be a tendency for migratory birds to be declining more. And things like the cuckoo and the spotted flycatcher are migratory. And there may be things happening in their migration routes that are having more impact. But broadly, there seems to be a strong pattern that insect-eating birds are declining. So that's one aspect, one repercussion of insect declines. Pollination is very patchy. There is growing evidence that the yields of insect-pollinated crops are becoming more unreliable, and that's happening at a noticeably faster rate than the yields of wind-pollinated crops, which obviously don't need insects.
Well, they truck around bees, right, to pollinate large fields these days. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, particularly in the United States, it doesn't happen so much in Europe. It does a bit, but in North America, they've kind of industrialized honeybee keeping in a way that Europe, thankfully, has never seen. And they literally ship millions of hives around the United States to try and keep up with the demand for pollination. And the pinch point seems to be the almond crop in Northern California. And almost every honeybee hive, something like 2 million hives, are transported to Northern California to pollinate that almond crop. And the supply of hives is getting a bit tight now. So the price that the almond growers have to pay to rent a hive has doubled in the last few years. And if the number of honeybee hives drops much more, then it'll reach a point where the almond harvest starts to drop.
And when that, you bring a bunch of bees together like that, does that lead to disease spread?
Like, well, you'd think horrible? So, wouldn't you? I mean, they literally, yeah. I mean, they're ramming in this extraordinary density of insects together. They're transported on lorries that might have 200 or 300 hives piled on the back. And then they're all just offloaded and the doors are opened and they're all milling around together. So if you wanted to set up a mechanism for transmitting disease, that'd be a pretty good one. And also, of course, they're exposed to a lot of pesticides on these crops. And on top of that, these poor bees, so the almond's just one stop on a kind of annual tour of North America, which, I can't remember the exact sequence, but they variously are taken from the almonds to pollinate blueberries in southern Canada. Later on in the year, they're doing pumpkins in the southern states, and eventually they end up in Florida for the citrus crops, and then back to California again. So they're doing something like 12,000 miles, and for maybe a month at a time, they're feeding on just one thing. So this sounds a bit daft, but if you can imagine that you were forced to eat chocolate for a month and nothing else, and then the next month you had to eat sardines, and the month after that you had to eat turnips, you probably wouldn't be very healthy. And we can't really be surprised that these honeybees aren't particularly healthy, given this weird life they lead, the stress, the disease transmission, the weird diet, and so on and so on. It's a kind of nut system that we've devised.
Escaped Sapiens.